My wife's best friend called me on a Thursday afternoon in March, and the first thing she said was, "Nathan, I need you to know that I tried not to do this. I tried for 6 months not to do this, and I can't anymore, and I'm sorry." Her name is Priya. She's known Tara since college. She was a bridesmaid at our wedding. She sat across from me at Thanksgiving dinner 3 years running and ate the sweet potato casserole I make from scratch and told me it was the best thing she'd ever eaten. And I believed her, because Priya is not someone who says things she doesn't mean. I pulled over on Broad Street because I was driving when she called, and after the first two sentences I understood that I needed to not be driving. I sat in my car on the shoulder of Broad Street in Columbus, Ohio, on a Thursday afternoon in March, and I listened to my wife's best friend tell me everything she'd been carrying for 6 months. And when she was done, I sat there for a while longer, and I thought about the sweet potato casserole and the wedding and 7 years, and I didn't say anything for long enough that Priya said my name twice to make sure I was still on the line. I was still on the line. I just didn't have any words yet. My name is Nathan. I'm 40 years old. I manage a distribution warehouse on the east side of Columbus, a large facility that handles consumer goods for a regional grocery chain. About 200 employees across 2 shifts, and my job is essentially the ongoing management of a complex system that is always on the verge of needing something that it doesn't currently have, whether that's personnel or equipment or time or all three simultaneously. I've been in warehouse operations for 17 years, and I have worked my way from floor associate to shift supervisor to operations manager to my current role, and I am good at it in the specific way that comes from having done every job in the building at some point and understanding from the ground up how it all fits together. Her name is Tara. She's 37, works as a buyer for a regional home goods chain. She sources products, manages vendor relationships, travels to trade shows, and makes the kind of decisions about what ends up on a store shelf that most people don't think about when they're standing in an aisle picking between two versions of the same candle holder. She's been doing it for 10 years, and she's good at it, with the specific quality of someone who can read a market trend early and act on it before everyone else catches up. She has an eye for things that will work and things that won't, which I've always found impressive and which, now, I'm trying not to find ironic. We met in 2015 at a mutual friend's Super Bowl party, the kind of party where half the people are actually watching the game and half are just there for the food and the social proximity. And Tara was firmly in the second category, which I found immediately appealing because I was too. We spent the entire fourth quarter talking about everything except football in a kitchen while the party happened around us. I asked for her number. She gave it to me, which I mentioned because there was a moment when I genuinely wasn't sure she was going to. And that moment of uncertainty made the yes feel significant. We dated for 18 months and got married in October 2017 at a venue on Olentangy River Road. 110 guests, a DJ that Tara had been very specific about, dancing that lasted until midnight, a first dance to a song that I'd thought was her favorite and that I now understand was chosen for a different reason, or maybe the same reason, and I'm just reconstructing things backward. I try not to do that. We bought our house on 4th Street in Grandview Heights 2 years after the wedding. A 3-bedroom Craftsman with a finished basement I'd converted into a home gym and a backyard with an old oak tree that drops approximately the weight of a small car and acorns every fall, and that we'd both complained about and neither of us had seriously considered removing, because it was also a beautiful tree, and you don't remove a beautiful tree just because it's inconvenient. 7 years together as a married couple. 11 if you count from when we met, which I sometimes do. We'd been through things. My father's heart surgery in 2019, her mother's move to Columbus from Dayton in 2021 when the living alone situation stopped working, a pandemic year that we'd navigated with the kind of stubborn practicality that either strengthens a marriage or reveals the cracks in it, and I'd thought it had strengthened ours. We did not have children by choice, a decision we'd made together and revisited once and confirmed, and then stopped revisiting. My flaw. And Tara had raised this with me across 7 years, in various forms and with varying levels of patience, is that I manage at home the same way I manage at the warehouse, by systems and metrics and observable outcomes, and not by the kind of consistent emotional attentiveness that a marriage requires and that I was capable of providing, but had to be actively reminded to provide. I am not cold. I am efficient, which is different, but from the inside of a marriage it can feel similar. And I'd been told this enough times that I'd stopped having a good defense for it. Priya was the one who told me that, early in our relationship, in that direct way she has. She'd said, Tara needs someone who shows up emotionally, not just logistically. She'd said it as advice, friend to significant other, the kind of thing a good friend says to make sure you understand what you're getting into. I'd heard it. I tried to internalize it. I'd managed it with varying success across 11 years. I tell you this because it's context, not excuse. Context. The first thing I noticed was in September. Tara had come home from a buying trip to Chicago in a particular way. She went to Chicago 3 or 4 times a year for trade shows and vendor meetings. Always had. Always came home tired and full of news about what she'd seen and what she was thinking about sourcing, the animated decompression of someone who loves their work. This September, she came home quieter. Not withdrawn. Just quieter. Turned inward. The specific quality of someone processing something that isn't ready to be shared yet. I asked if the trip had been okay. She said fine. Good. Just a lot to think through. I accepted this because it was plausible and because I was in the middle of a staffing crisis at the warehouse that had been consuming most of my cognitive bandwidth for 2 weeks, and I didn't push. In October, I noticed the phone behavior. I'm not going to overstate this because I've now read enough of these posts to know that the phone thing is so common it's almost a cliche, but it was there. Slightly more face down, slightly more present in her hand in the evenings. A specific quickness to flip it or lock it when I came into a room that was new. Not dramatic. Not obvious. Just a calibration shift in her relationship with the device. I noticed it, and I told myself I was being paranoid in the specific way that 40-year-old men in the middle of a stressful work season sometimes become paranoid, which is to say I talked myself out of it by making the noticing itself the problem. In November, there was a name. His name was Connor. She mentioned him in the context of a new vendor relationship her company was developing. A supplier she'd discovered at the Chicago show, younger company, apparently innovative in ways that were relevant to what her chain was trying to do with its home goods section. Connor Taft was the founder's son who handled the sales side, had grown up in the business, was in his mid-30s and apparently very good at his job. She mentioned him twice in November in professional context, and I registered the name and did nothing with it. In December, she mentioned that the vendor relationship was progressing well and that she'd be doing a site visit to their facility in Akron after the new year. A day trip, probably. Akron is 90 minutes from Columbus, and the logistics weren't complicated. She mentioned it in the same tone she mentioned all professional travel. I said, sounds good. Let me know when it's scheduled. She went to Akron in January. She came back that evening later than I'd expected, said the meeting had run long, said the facility was impressive, said she was excited about the product line. She seemed. And here's the texture I'd been noticing since September, the thing I couldn't quite name. She seemed lit up in a way that was more than professional enthusiasm. The way she looked after the Chicago trip in September, but brighter this time and less contained. I asked about the meeting. She told me about the facility and the product line and the conversation with Connor about sourcing terms, and I listened and said the right things and went to bed, and I lay there in the dark and I thought, there's something in the way she says that name. I told myself I was reading into a tone of voice. I told myself I was doing what insecure husbands do, manufacturing a problem because work was stressful and I wasn't paying enough attention to things that mattered, and this was easier than facing that. I fell asleep. I got up the next morning and drove to the warehouse and managed my system and came home and ate dinner and went to bed. The ordinary calendar of a life that was fine, or that I had decided was fine. February is when I stopped being able to maintain the decision. The Akron visit happened again. This one was announced more casually. She mentioned it on a Tuesday morning almost in passing. She had to go back out to Akron for a follow-up with the vendor. She'd be back by dinner. I said okay. She went. She came back by dinner. But this time something was different in the specific way that something is different when it's the second time and you've been watching for it. She was careful when she came home. Where she'd been lit up after the January trip, this time she was careful, measured, present, asking me about my day in the attentive way she asked about my day on the days when she was making an effort. I'd been with this person for 11 years. I knew the texture of her effort. I was mowing the lawn on a Saturday in late February, the early spring in Ohio, still cold enough to see your breath, but the grass had started doing the thing it does, and I'd decided to get ahead of it. And I was pushing the mower down the back slope, and I was thinking about Connor Taft, and the September trip, and the phone, and the January visit, and the careful version of Tara, who'd come home from the February one. I was building the case that I'd been refusing to build since September, and standing behind a lawn mower in the backyard of my house, under the oak tree that drops acorns all fall, I let myself build it all the way to its conclusion for the first time. The conclusion was not something I was ready to act on. The conclusion was a guess, a pattern, a collection of things that each had an innocent explanation, and that together suggested something that I didn't have direct evidence for. I have 17 years in a job that requires me to distinguish between a problem and a symptom of a problem, and what I had was symptoms. I needed the problem itself. I thought about asking Tara directly. I'd thought about it before and kept stopping, and this time I stopped for a different reason. I was afraid that asking directly would tell her I was suspicious, and that knowing I was suspicious might change her behavior in ways that made the thing I was afraid of harder to see. I'm aware that's a concerning thought to have had. I'm not proud of it. I'm telling you about it because you should know who I was in that moment. I pushed the mower back up the slope, and I finished the lawn, and I went inside, and I said nothing. 3 weeks later, Priya called. I want to tell the conversation slowly because it happened slowly, or at least it felt slow. The way things feel slow when your nervous system is trying to process faster than your brain can manage. She opened the way I told you she opened. I tried not to do this. And then she said she needed me to know that she'd found out in September, that Tara had told her after the Chicago trip, because Priya was the person Tara told things to, because that had been the nature of their friendship since college, and Priya had spent 6 months trying to convince Tara to end it, and to tell me herself before it went any further. I told her 100 times, Priya said. Her voice was tight in the way of someone who had been holding something too long. I told her she had to tell you, or I would. She kept saying she was going to end it. She kept saying it was almost done. It's not done, I said. It wasn't a question. She went to Akron last week. Priya said it carefully. I know she told you it was for work. It was for the vendor. Silence on the other end. Priya. He's the vendor, Nathan. That's yes. But the visits aren't only about the vendor account. I sat in my car on the shoulder of Broad Street, and I looked at the dashboard, and I thought about Akron in 90 minutes, and the careful version of Tara, who came home by dinner. How long, I said. Since Chicago. The September trip. A pause. I think it started there. September. 6 months. The quiet version, who'd come home from Chicago. The name that appeared in November, January, and February in Akron. 6 months of a thing that Priya had known about, and that I'd been standing next to without seeing. Who is he? I said. Beyond the vendor thing. Priya was quiet for a moment. He's 34. He grew up in his family's business. He seems like someone who is good at getting people to trust him. That's my read. Tara's read is different. A beat was different. I don't know what her read is now. Is he in a relationship? He was. Girlfriend of 3 years. I think they've broken up since this started, but I'm not certain. I looked at the traffic moving past me on Broad Street. The ordinary Thursday afternoon traffic of people going places they were supposed to be going. Why are you calling me? I said. Why now? Because she went to Akron again last week, and she told me it was probably the last time, and I'd heard that before, and I couldn't. Priya stopped. I could hear her composing herself. Because I've been lying to you by not saying anything, and I can't do it anymore. And because I love Tara, but I also. You're a good person, Nathan. You deserve to know. I sat with that for a moment. Does she know you're calling me? No. Okay. I looked at the dashboard. Thank you for telling me. I know that wasn't easy. I'm so sorry. Her voice cracked on the last word, and she held it together. I know. I meant it. I'll call you. I hung up. I sat on the shoulder of Broad Street for about 20 minutes. Then I drove home. Tara wasn't home yet. I sat at the kitchen table under the ordinary lights of our ordinary kitchen, and I waited. She came home at 6:15. Work bag, the particular walk of someone who'd had a full day, the routine sounds of arrival. She came into the kitchen and saw me at the table and said hey and started to put her bag down, and I said her name in a tone that stopped her. She stood in the middle of the kitchen with her bag half set down, and she looked at me. Priya called me. I said. The bag went the rest of the way down slowly, like something releasing. Okay, she said. Very quiet. Connor Taft. She closed her eyes. Sit down, Tara. She sat across from me. She wasn't looking at me. How long, I said. Since September. She said it to the table. I know she told you that already. I want to hear it from you. Since September. She looked up then. Her eyes were wet. The Chicago trip. It started there, and I told myself it wouldn't go anywhere, and then. The Akron visits. Yes. January and February. Yes. I looked at the kitchen. 7 years of ordinary evenings in this kitchen. The casserole dish I'd bought because she said we needed a bigger one. The calendar on the wall with her handwriting in half the boxes. Is it over? I said. She looked at her hands. I've been trying to. Is it over? No, said quietly, and with something that might have been relief at saying it, which was its own thing to sit with. Are you in love with him? Silence. Tara. I don't know. She shook her head. I know that's not what you want to hear. What I want to hear and what I need to hear are different things. I need to hear what's true. Something that feels like she stopped. I feel something that I haven't felt in a long time. I know how that sounds. I know what it says about us. She pressed her hand over her mouth. I'm not saying it to hurt you. Is it about us? I said. Or is it about him? She looked at me for a long moment. Both. I think it's both. I know that's worse. I stood up. I walked to the window and looked at the backyard. The oak tree. The lawn I'd mowed 3 weeks ago while I was building the case in my head, right there under that tree. Did you think about telling me? I said. At any point in 6 months. Every day. She said it clearly. Every day since Chicago. But you didn't. No. Because you didn't want it to end. A long pause. Yes. I turned around and looked at her. She was crying in the quiet, steady way she cried. Without drama. Just tears that came and didn't stop. I need you to go somewhere else tonight, I said. I need to be in this house alone. Okay. She didn't argue. I'll call my mom. Don't tell her everything tonight. Tell her you had a fight. Tell her whatever you need to tell her. Okay. Tara. She looked up. I need to know one thing, and I need you to be honest. Okay. Did you want to get caught? She looked at me for a long time. Her face did something complicated. I don't know, she finally said. Maybe. Maybe I didn't know how to end it myself, and I was waiting for. She stopped. That's not something I'm proud of. I know, I said. She packed a bag. She said my name at the bedroom door, just my name, the way people say your name when they've run out of other words. I looked at her. She left. I sat in the kitchen for a long time. Then I called Priya back and I thanked her again, properly this time. And she cried a little, and I let her, because she'd been carrying something heavy for 6 months and the weight had come off, and sometimes that's what it looks like when it does. I've been sleeping in the house alone for 5 days. I'm writing this now because I need somewhere to put it. I said I'd come back. Here it is. The comments on the original post were more than I expected. I've worked through most of them over the past 3 weeks on the nights when sleep wasn't available, which were most of them. Some were useful. Some were people putting their own situations on mine in ways that didn't fit, but that I understood. We come to these posts with what we know. One person wrote, the part where you asked if she wanted to get caught is the most honest question I've ever seen someone ask in a post like this. I've been thinking about that comment since I read it, because the question was honest, and the answer was honest, and the honesty of both of them is the thing I keep coming back to. Here's what happened. Tara has been at her mother's house in the Clintonville neighborhood for 19 days. Her mother, Donna, is 65, lives alone since Tara's father passed 3 years ago, and the two of them are close in a way that I've always respected. Donna called me once, about a week in. Carefully, briefly, the call of someone who loves her daughter and also has known me for 7 years and is trying to hold both of those truths simultaneously. She said she was sorry and that she didn't understand it, and that she hoped I knew her feelings hadn't changed. I said I knew that and I meant it, and we haven't spoken since, but the call was the right thing to do. The house on 4th Street is mine and Tara's, both names on the mortgage, bought together, and the legal reality of that is something I've started to understand through a conversation with an attorney named Robert who is clear-eyed and practical and who gave me an accurate picture of what my options were without editorializing about what I should do with them. I'm staying in the house. Tara is at Donna's. That's the current geography. I told my brother first. His name is Kevin. He's 45, lives in Cincinnati, and he is the kind of older brother who has been through his own version of a hard thing. He went through a separation in 2018 that resolved into a divorce in 2019, so he came at this with a map of terrain he'd already crossed rather than speculation about what the terrain might be like. He drove up the weekend after everything came out, and we went to a place on Kinney Road that we'd been going to since we were in our 20s, and we ate too much and talked for 3 hours, and he said something that I've kept. The question you're going to have to answer isn't whether you can forgive her. It's whether you can build a marriage with someone who waited 6 months and needed Priya to make the call. He said it carefully, not as a verdict, just as a question. I've been sitting with it. Priya. This is the complicated part. Priya has been Tara's best friend since college. She knew for 6 months. She sat with that knowledge and carried it and tried to get Tara to end it or tell me. And when she'd exhausted that option, she made the call. I believe all of that. I also know that the friendship between her and Tara has effectively been blown apart by the call, and that Tara has not spoken to Priya since it happened, and that Priya knew that would be the likely outcome and made the call anyway. I've thought about what it costs a person to do that, and I don't think I've arrived at a number yet that feels right. I've spoken to Priya twice since the Thursday call. Both times briefly. She asked how I was doing, and I told her honestly, and she asked if there was anything I needed, and I said not right now. She said she'd be there if that changed. I believe her. Whatever the shape of things between me and Tara, Priya did the right thing by me, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise because it's complicated. The unexpected complication. Connor Taft came to Columbus. I don't know all the details because I don't have them and I've decided I don't want them, but I know this. After Tara told him it was over, he drove from Akron to Columbus. He called her first, and she didn't answer, and then he showed up at Donna's house. I know this because Donna called me, quietly, to let me know it had happened, not to escalate anything, but because she thought I should know and because she'd handled it. She'd spoken to him at the door, told him Tara wasn't going to see him, told him he needed to go, and he'd gone. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know if it was desperation or calculation or something that felt like love from inside it. I know it happened and that Donna handled it with a firmness I would not have predicted from a 65-year-old woman in a Clintonville bungalow, and I've been quietly grateful for that firmness since I heard about it. I have not contacted Connor. I've thought about it, and the thought always ends in the same place, which is that there is no version of that conversation that leaves me feeling better and several versions that leave me feeling worse. He's 34, he sells product lines to buyers, and he walked up to a door in Columbus and Donna sent him away. And that's enough for me to know. The friend's situation is the usual distribution of uncertain loyalties and careful silences. People who were primarily mine have been present. People who were primarily hers have appropriately stepped back. One couple, our neighbors Doug and Felicia, who have lived 3 houses down on 4th Street for 4 years and who had dinner with us probably once a month, have been specifically present in a way that I didn't expect, and that has mattered more than most other things in the past 3 weeks. Felicia brought food twice without asking. Doug helped me with something in the basement that needed 2 people and that I'd been meaning to handle for months. Neither of them has asked questions I wasn't ready to answer. The inside of it. The first morning I woke up alone in the house, really alone, Tara at her mother's. The first full morning of the new situation. I lay there and ran the ordinary inventory. What day? What do I have? And then the weight of the previous week came back in the sequence it's been coming back in every morning since. The oak tree drops things year-round, not just in fall. Small branches, debris from whatever weather has just moved through. I found 3 of them on the lawn the morning after everything came out, when I'd gone outside at 6 a.m. because I couldn't sleep and needed to be somewhere with air. I picked them up and put them in the yard waste bin and stood under the tree for a while and looked at it. Same tree. Still beautiful. Still inconvenient. I found her reading glasses on the nightstand about a week in. The ones she kept there for the middle of the night when she wanted to look at something without going to get her contacts. Small, wire-framed, the kind you buy in a 3-pack. I picked them up and stood there holding them for a moment, and then I put them in the drawer and closed it, which is where things go when you're not ready to decide what to do with them. There's a breakfast place on Grandview Avenue called Catalina's. They do these pancake balls that Tara had specifically made a thing of, the kind of specific food enthusiasm that becomes part of a couple's geography. We'd gone almost every Saturday for 2 years. I went last Saturday by myself, first time since everything, and I sat at a table for 2 and ordered coffee and ate something that wasn't the pancake balls and watched Grandview Avenue through the window and got through the hour. I still put 2 glasses out at dinner. I've caught myself doing it 3 times. Each time I put one back and eat standing at the counter or sitting at the table alone and go to bed, and the next night the muscle memory does it again. This will eventually stop. I've been told it will eventually stop. The warehouse runs whether I'm fully operational or not, which is either a comfort or an indictment, depending on how I'm feeling about it that day. My operations supervisor, A woman named Gloria who has been at that facility for 14 years and who runs her shift with a precision I've always found remarkable, said to me in the break room last week, "You look like you're managing about 8 things you're not going to tell me about. I'm going to need you to eat something." She put a container of something she'd made at home on the table in front of me. I ate it. It was good. I thanked her. She said don't mention it, and went back to the floor. Here is where I actually am. Tara and I have spoken 6 times since she went to her mother's. For logistics calls. One long conversation, about 10 days in, where she said things about the marriage that I've been going through carefully, about the efficient distance, the emotional management gap, the years of feeling well-maintained rather than fully seen. She said it carefully, not as a case for what she'd done, but as an honest account of what she'd been living with. I listened. I didn't defend myself in the moment, and I haven't defended myself since, because I think her account is accurate even if I don't think it is an explanation for what she did, and I'm trying to hold both of those truths simultaneously without letting either one cancel the other. The 6th conversation was 4 days ago. She asked, carefully, whether I'd be willing to see a marriage counselor. Not as a commitment to anything. She was precise about that. She said she wasn't asking me to decide anything, just to have the conversations in a space where they could be had properly. She said she would understand if I said no. She said she'd been honest with me, and she was going to keep being honest, and the honest thing was that she wanted to find out if there was something worth keeping rather than assume there wasn't. I told her I'd think about it. That was the honest answer, and I gave it to her. She said okay. I've started seeing a therapist individually. Her name is Dr. Maya Osei, and she has an office on High Street, and she has a quality that I needed more than I knew I needed it, which is that she doesn't let me stay in the operational register. Every time I start building a framework or analyzing the situation from a slight remove, she brings me back to what I actually felt in the moment, which is different from the account of the moment that I've been giving myself, and the difference is the work. I've been 3 times. I'm going back next week. She said something in the 2nd session that I've been carrying. You asked Tara if she wanted to get caught. That's the question of someone who already understands that what happened wasn't only about her. I've been thinking about that since, about what it means and what it doesn't mean, and I don't have a clean answer yet. The oak tree is doing what oak trees do in early spring in Ohio, which is beginning to think about producing leaves while still dropping debris from winter. I've been raking the debris every few days because it gives me something to do with my hands in the evening when I'd otherwise just be in the house with the quiet. It's a big tree. There's always more debris. This turns out to be useful. Kevin is coming back down from Cincinnati next weekend. We're going to Kinney Road again. He said he has no agenda, and I believe him. She waited 6 months. She didn't stop it, and she didn't tell me, and she waited for someone else to make the call that she didn't have it in her to make herself. And whether that was cowardice or paralysis or something that felt, from inside it, like love making it impossible to choose, I don't know yet. And I'm trying to hold the not knowing as its own kind of answer rather than a failure to have arrived at one. Tomorrow, a man is cleaning out his late father's storage unit when he finds a box of letters addressed to someone he's never heard of, and the handwriting on every envelope is his mother's.